The Fifine AM8 is one of the best budget microphones of our time. For around $50 to $60, you get a mic with warmth and some high-end detail, and it just sounds great out of the box, even in USB mode. Quick disclaimer, Fifine did send this microphone for review for a previous video, but this is not that video, and either way, I just share my thoughts only. They have no input whatsoever. With that out of the way, you can hear how great this microphone sounds in USB-C mode, but USB-C mode has a weakness. If you turn up the mic gain enough, or even if the gain is low and you boost the volume in post, you're gonna hear that there's kind of this hiss in the background. Can you hear that? So you may or may have not heard that background hiss. I couldn't hear the hiss through my speakers, but that is when the microphone is close to your mouth. Now, for some of you, you might want to put the microphone this far or even out of sight. Now, dynamic microphones like the Fifine AM8 are generally not designed for long-distance miking. But right now, my gain is set to maximum. Now it's just right in front of me. My mouth is about 2 spans away from the mic, and this is how that sounds. And for live streaming, obviously, this won't do. Now, at this distance, I can boost the audio in post, but this is how noisy the background is going to sound. So for this scenario, you might be thinking, well, if I plug it into an audio interface like maybe the Fifine SC1, surely it's going to sound louder and cleaner, right? Now, if you've never set up an audio interface, I know it can be intimidating at first. I know how it feels. I've been there. But it really is as simple as grabbing an XLR cable, grabbing that male end with the 3 pins, connecting that into the XLR port in your audio interface, grabbing the female end with the 3 holes, connecting that into the back of your mic until you hear it click, like so. Then you grab your USB cable and plug that into your audio interface. Sometimes it might be an older port. Modern ones tend to use USB-C to USB-C, sometimes USB-A, and you connect this other end into your computer. And now we're plugged into the Fifine SC1, and this is how it sounds. Take note that for my version of macOS, this is a plug-and-play audio interface, so I don't need to install any drivers, but more advanced audio interfaces usually require that. And as you can see here, my gain is set to maximum, and I do not have phantom power on, because the Fifine AM8 is a dynamic microphone and doesn't require phantom power. Now, as you can hear, this is noticeably louder than just using it in USB mode. So do I recommend getting the Fifine SC1 for your Fifine AM8? If your goal is just to make it louder, and this much additional volume is worth it for you, then by all means, go for it. So the Fifine SC1 on its own does add gain. And this is great for live applications such as streaming. However, I do not find that the Fifine SC1 improves the audio quality of the Fifine AM8. Looking at the waveforms of the Fifine SC1, you can find some kind of a flattening, almost like a limiter at the tip of the sound waves. Over here, this is kind of smooth. Fifine SC1. But the moment it gets to this part, right here where it begins to become flat, quality of the Fifine AM8. It sounds a bit distorted. And here you'll see the waveform of the Fifine AM8 in USB mode, and as you can see, it is perfectly normal with a bit more variation at the tips. And if we play it back, it does not sound distorted. Also, some interesting facts on their website. If you go to the Fifine SC1's page, you will find that the Fifine SC1 has a signal-to-noise ratio of greater than 75 dB, and on the AM8 page, the AM8 has a signal-to-noise ratio of greater than 80 dB, with a higher number being better. And that means in a recording-only scenario where you do have the option to boost the volume in post, the Fifine AM8 in USB mode is going to sound better than it did versus the SC1, at least when it comes to removing that background hiss. And that means in a recording-only scenario where you do have the option to boost the volume of the AM8 in post, the AM8 is going to have quieter preamp noise in USB mode compared to when plugged into the SC1. If you truly want to use the Fifine AM8 with a louder volume, at a distance, with not a lot of preamp noise, my best recommendation is to pick up a professional audio interface. I have a pretty good feeling that the Vocaster 2 or 1 is going to get the job done, but you might be thinking, well Dave, that's too expensive. I want to start with the SC1 and just maybe grab a mic booster along the way after first grabbing the SC1. It's valid to consider that approach, so let's put that to the test. This is the Triton Fethead mic booster. Take note that there are two versions, one meant for condenser microphones and one meant for dynamic microphones. This is the dynamic version because the AM8 is a dynamic microphone. Okay, now we're using the Fethead, and as you can see, phantom power is turned on because the Fethead needs to be powered by phantom power. Yes, even though it is meant for dynamic mics. And as you can see, though the gain is very, very low on the Fifine SC1, we can get reasonably loud levels. And here's the Fethead right behind the AM8 with the XLR cable connected to it. Let's listen to the background noise at this distance. To me, that is dead silent for most people. However, as you can see here with the Fethead plus SC1 waveform, you are still getting some of that flattening / distortion on top of the waveform. So with the SC1, I wouldn't recommend it. Even if you could find another audio interface for about $50, and then you want to add a Fethead to that, and assuming there's no flattening of the waveform, you are paying $80 to $100 just for a quieter noise floor. And not by much even. It doesn't make sense. $50-ish mic, $50-ish audio interface, $80 to $100 mic booster, you would be better off just using the AM8 in USB mode. And check this out, if it's pretty far from me, and I just raise my energy and talk at this volume, you're gonna get a loud signal and a very quiet noise floor relative to my voice. So this is perfect for shouting with a lot of headroom. If you really need more volume at this price point, you can start with talking into the mic at this distance. And when the budget permits, I'm making too many assumptions. Let's try it out first. Okay, we've switched over to the Focusrite Vocaster 2 interface, and this is how loud it can get at a distance without getting too noisy. I can boost it even more. Yeah, I think this is far more professional. Now for most podcasts, even professional ones, this would be a reasonable signal-to-noise ratio. I can even boost it even more. More. And now the gain is pretty high with a respectable signal-to-noise ratio. Let's listen to the noise floor. Let's listen for the preamp noise. I can hear that there's a tiny bit of that hiss, but it's reached that point where the hiss is quieter than my AC and my studio lights fan. Let me point this at the fan. And in case you were curious, Fifine AM8, Fethead, Vocaster 2, and this is how it sounds at a distance. I can raise the gain a bit more, right there. And in this scenario, I can hear that improvement in the noise floor. So in this instance, yes, you could get a Fethead to upgrade your audio even more if that slight difference matters to you. Okay, we're back to using the Fifine AM8 without the Fethead connected to the Focusrite Vocaster 2. And yes, you can hear a bit of that preamp noise, but here's a neat little trick. If we go to the Focusrite Vocaster Hub app, then click the Enhance button, and then click the settings over here, we can see that we have access to bass, mid, and treble. And the preamp noise is predominantly treble, so we can drop this, listen carefully. And now it is gone, and the AM8 still sounds pretty good. Because it does have a bit of high-end information, it's okay to drop that a bit. Okay, so I've dropped the gain since I'm bringing the mic closer anyway. Overall, the Fifine AM8 already sounds great in USB mode. And if you're going for that professional polish, just skip the budget interface, skip the mic booster. This really was designed more for the SM7B, but the AM8 really isn't gain hungry, and if you connect it to a proper audio interface, it will be more than sufficiently loud, and you can make it even louder. Now, although this isn't a sponsored video, this video was made possible by the members of this channel. In fact, they voted on it. And just a special thanks to these wonderful people. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions mean a lot to me. But if you do want to support this channel on the paid level so I can make more videos like this one, click the join button down below. Hope you like this video, and I'll see you in this one.